Hello everyone, welcome back to the Rangers Reviews post-match briefing after Rangers 1, Newcastle 2. It's the two of us, myself and Johnny McFarlane. We've watched the match, heard from the manager, and now we are bringing you your final bit of content from the night, I guess, Johnny, until we have a deeper look at it in tomorrow's morning briefing. If you want to read our instant reaction to the match, you can do so in the comment section. Loads of content for you over on the website and on our Twitter pages, all our social channels as well. But we'll get right into it, Johnny. It was quite a tough game, I think, for Rangers. Probably a good test against a level of side they won't face in Champions League qualifying. They might if they get to the Champions League. They improved after the break. I think there's a few things that helped that we can get into, but tonight we'll start with it was all about Allan McGregor and a great send-off for a fantastic servant to the club.
Yeah, first of all, with regards to Allan McGregor, I thought that Ibrox gave him the rapturous departure that he deserved.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked many occasions on how good Allan McGregor has been, and if he's topped Andy Gorham to be the best keeper, I don't think so. But then I'm of an age that I came through watching Andy Gorham, and I don't think any keeper would probably change my mind, because when I was in my formative years, Andy Gorham made a very big impression on me. But I think for kids coming up now, they'll feel the same way as I feel about Andy Gorham, about Allan McGregor. And it doesn't really matter. They're both legends. They're both have had incredible careers. And Allan, having had two spells, the level of longevity that he's had has been remarkable. You know, he's been part of a team that got to a European final twice. I know he didn't make it first time because of injury, and that was obviously a bit of a tragedy, but he made it work and got there in the end. So he deserved that kind of reception he got tonight. You know, he turned from a Rangers hero into a Rangers legend, you know, made that transition. You know, he won't play for the club again here at Ibrox unless it's in one of those Legends matches. And what a fitting send-off, you know, from the first moment when he was introduced prior to the game. He had a little short interview, and it was clear that he was emotional, talking to the fans. And I thought it was a really nice comment he made. The guy who was doing the interview, who I don't know who it was actually, he said, you know, the fans have turned out in great numbers to thank you, Allan. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, but I'm also here to thank them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice way to put it, because, you know, it's easy for players to make platitudes like that about the fans, and it kind of rolls off the tongue of many. But Allan's been around for so long and done so much that he's earned the right, and it's authentic coming from his mouth.
Yeah.
So I really, really did feel like it was a great moment before the game even started. He got several huge raptures when his name was read out, and then to get that moment where he came off the pitch, I think it was the 37th minute he came off.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be half an hour, but he got a little bit longer. And, you know, if you look at the Rangers Review Twitter, we've got the video there, and you'll see the level of noise. My phone was dinging. We've got an Apple Watch here, and my watch was dinging saying, you've reached 90 decibels. Prolonged exposure to this level of noise will be damaging to your health. So I think that gives you a good indication about how loud Ibrox was in that moment. So Allan McGregor, fantastic. A great servant. In terms of the game itself, Josh, I think you're better to speak about the tactics of it than me, but looking at the game, you're thinking to yourself, this is a standard of opposition a cut above anything Rangers will face probably in the qualifiers, as you say, but it gives a perfect opportunity to get that off-the-ball shape right for these kind of games when you know you're going to be under the cosh for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
The quality that Newcastle have, the skill that their forward players have, their physicality, I thought was very impressive. You look at the size of them, they're all big guys. Callum Wilson, a forward who doesn't stop running, very strong. To give you an example of one player that stood out to me, even though he didn't do an awful lot. So a great test, despite the fact I think there was at times during the game, especially in the first half, where probably I was turning to them in the press box and saying, crikey, is this really the team you want to play first up?
I guess the thing is, obviously, there's only 3 new signings started tonight. I think there'll be a lot more changes to the Rangers starting 11 by the time that they play Kilmarnock on, what is it, the 5th of August. Still, I think a lot of additions or a few additions to come, and we'll get to that with what Michael Beale spoke about in the post-match press conference. But you kind of want to start pre-season, I guess, showing what you can do on the ball, but this is maybe more about Rangers, what they're going to do off the ball. I don't think they were quite aggressive enough in the first half. I think what helped them, and we'll cover this a bit more tomorrow because I think it's quite interesting, was how they changed to instead they were kind of 4-3-3 at the start. They went more to that split striker shape with a number 10 behind, which we've spoken a lot about in pre-season, and and incidentally leads to Sam Lammers being able to steal the ball for the goal that would equalise the game. In terms of how new signings did, it wasn't a great test for what they can do on the ball, or a great opportunity for them to show what they could do. Before we get to the new signings, I think the player that impressed me most tonight, and he's done it ever since he arrived, was probably Nico Raskin, who, again, it's a friendly. I always say with friendlies, you can't really tell how well sides are going to do, but you can maybe try and see some of the ideas and what they're trying to do. And it's too simple to say Raskin changed the game because, again, it's a friendly, and Newcastle had changed their entire team by that point.
Yeah.
What you can say is he's going to be one of, if not Rangers' most important player this season, and that midfield is going to be really dependent on him having an absolutely huge campaign.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of Ryan Jack, and I think John Lundstrom, when he's on it, is a very good player. I know that there'll be people who disagree with that, but that's my honest held opinion. And yet, when Nico Raskin comes on, Josh, he makes them look plodding.
Yeah.
He's just on a different level, and the way he carries the ball, the way he shapes his body to take it, means he's always got that extra moment of time. Look, I don't want to put too much pressure on the lad, but there's something about him that's reminiscent of Barry Ferguson in the way he's always composed, he's always able to take it in tough situations, and the way he can, I just think it's his range of passing.
Yeah. And the fact I think that he can carry the ball. He's not a player who is only reliant on his passing ability, but there was a couple of moments in the second half where he gets the ball under pressure and he can carry it beyond a couple of players. And, going on to what Michael Beale was speaking about post-match in his press conference, he said that Danilo is a player that Rangers like. He interestingly said he's not the only forward that Rangers are talking to, which I guess confirms that another nine's going to come into the club, and said that Sam Lammers isn't going to play as a main striker. He's going to either play as a support striker in that number 10 position. But he also said that he thinks Rangers need one more midfielder in there. Again, said that Cifuentes is a player that Rangers really like. Obviously, you can't say that, yes, we definitely want to sign him, because if they don't go and sign him, you set yourself up for failure. But reading between the lines, those two additions in particular are, I guess, where Rangers are away from. If you look at that starting 11 tonight with Dessers as well, with Butland to come back in, Dujon Sterling obviously out injured at the moment. If you were to add Danilo and Cifuentes, as the press conference suggests that Rangers are very interested in them, then that new Rangers does really start to take shape, as opposed to maybe the team that we saw tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to feel that Cifuentes will add that extra dimension alongside Raskin in there, that kind of real powerhouse in terms of getting up and down the pitch. Now, I'm not sitting here and pretending I'm an expert in Jose Cifuentes. I've read the scouting reports that we've done.
Yeah.
I've watched a bit of video on him. But the one thing you would say about him is the guy is a physical powerhouse.
Yeah, I think he can really go box to box, arrive into the box. He's someone who, I've watched a few games of LAFC and quite involved in the build-up, but I think what you've got to look at is, as opposed to where do Rangers not have cover and like a positional chart, is what profiles don't they have?
Yeah.
I know they have Lundstrom, who is a box-to-box player. I don't think they have a box-to-box kind of technical number 8 who can arrive in the opposition third and score.
Well, it sounds like maybe he was thinking Hadji might be that.
Yeah,
because he did talk about that after the game.
He is, but I guess Hadji's never had that box-to-box engine in the same way. Hadji did come onto the game deeper.
I know what you mean, like a Roy Keane, traditional British central midfielder that can do everything that's up and down in the game. And Cifuentes does appear to be that.
Yeah,
listen, from everything that we've seen and everything I think we've heard at the Rangers review, I don't think there's any doubt that Cifuentes is very much a guy that Rangers want to see at the club. Now, it's clearly been a complex transfer. There's no doubt about that, because this has been going on for, months. But
I think it's towards the end of last season, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, certainly weeks and almost certainly behind the scenes months. But in terms of the transfer saga, and the edging forward towards the deal, it's been a long time in the creation. So there's clearly something that's holding up the deal. It's been described to me by people at the club as complex. So we'll have to wait and see. And Michael Beale did say at the end, you don't know until you've got the player in. So I'm not going to get I'm not going to get too held up on this one individual player.
Let's talk about what else came up in the press conference. Michael Beale said positively that Leon King's injury seems nowhere near as bad as Rangers first thought.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he said 4 to 5 weeks. He could be
Pretty sure that's what he said, yeah.
Could be back in training. The initial scan has confirmed the problem wasn't as severe as Rangers thought. Did kind of suggest that Tom Lawrence could be involved at the weekend. Said he's absolutely desperate to be. So it might just be a case of him taking a little bit longer. Dessers is going to be involved as well. So it does sound like on the injury front, it is all. And we say this tentatively because this wasn't the case last season, but it does look as though Rangers are going to be in a relative good bill of health for the next 3 pre-season games coming up, hopefully with a bit more transfer activity coming in and out, because after that we should also mention what he said about Kamara and Scott Wright, and we should of course mention you can go and watch the press conference on the YouTube channel after you've watched us.
Yeah, he was a bit curious about Kamara because he said that nothing was imminent because he's been ill.
Yeah, he said there's been a few inquiries about
so,
Wright as well.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I think certainly those are 2 players that Rangers would certainly like to move on. I think in the case of Kamara, he would like to move on. In the case of Scott Wright, I think he knows that he's not going to get the game time that he's wanting at the age that he's at. He's given it a good shot, and he'll now go on to a club where he's a first pick, or that's what he'll certainly aim to do. I think Rangers, and I said this today in the briefing this morning, will be looking to get players out ideally before they get players in. Just to they've spent a lot of money this summer to get these 7 players in. One thing I think is quite interesting, Josh, just without changing the subject too much, but just be interested in what your opinion is this. What does this now then mean for the defence? Because Balogun was, to all intents and purposes, brought in as the guy that was going to cover for Leon King. But if Leon King's only going to be out for 4 or 5 weeks, does this mean that we've almost seen the last of the central defensive moves? I mean, are we happy with Balogun, Davies, Goldson, Suter and King? Does that seem reasonable?
I'd hope not. I'd hope there'd be one more first choice player in there. Again, looking at the roles that Beale likes, I think he'll want a defender who is really aggressive, happy coming into the midfield a lot, which I think Balogun in a way gave him in his first spell, but obviously he's 2 years older now. He's arrived, as you say, as cover. Guess it depends what happens with Ben Davies as well, because there you've got a player you spent a lot of money on last season. And I thought he did fine tonight in the first half, but I still think the Rangers need one more player in that position as well. But you're looking at, if you're talking about Danilo, Cifuentes, another central defender as well, that's still quite a lot of money to spend. Rangers have spent a lot of money already as well. So, intriguing to see what happens there. But I guess real positive news for Leon King that it isn't going to be as bad as feared. Let's get to just a few comments before we wrap up. We're obviously going to be live tomorrow morning talking about the game. Ian says, great test for us at Newcastle, our quality side. That was evident in the first half. Glad that we looked physically stronger, but maybe lacked a bit of pace and obvious goal scorers. Jason says, totally agree with Jonny. I thought of BF a few times watching. Sorry, too far away. I obviously need glasses. Huge player for us this season. And finally, Boba big Lammers will cause problems for the opposition this season. I thought Lammers looked pretty bright in pockets. Again, I don't think it's necessarily his type of game.
Good finish though.
Good finish, and it might do his confidence a world of good. I think he'll thrive in games where he does have a lot of the ball. But just a word finally on how you thought both he and Sima played and maybe what we saw about them ahead of the new season.
I was impressed with Sima, I've got to say. Now, Josh was telling me throughout the game, this lad Sima, just keep your eye on him. He's my pick. Now, Josh has had he's had an up and down prediction rate for Rangers signings over the last 2 years of the Rangers review. I'm just going to say that. Let's not mention what he was saying to me about Rabi Matondo this time last year. Yeah. But actually, Matondo, he's got a habit of looking good in friendlies because he looked good tonight when he came on. He really caused some problems down the right-hand side and put a couple of great balls in the box. But in terms of Sima, the one thing that's really stood out to me is this guy is a brick outhouse. He is strong.
Yeah.
There was 2 or 3 occasions where one of the Newcastle players basically went shoulder to shoulder with him and bounced off him. I'm not kidding. It was quite stark just how physically strong he is on the ball. So I think he's going to be extremely robust in terms of the Scottish Premiership. I don't think he's going to have any problems with the physical elements.
I think he'll give you a different type of physicality.
Yeah.
You know, you're not pinging the ball into him like you would with Morelos.
No,
it's more
of course
about,
not.
It's more about turning defences. I think Seema's quite an interesting...
Just sorry to interrupt, but just what I mean by this, just so for a bit of clarity.
Okay.
If you're thinking of Seema coming in as a traditional wide player, you think of them as often slight, fleet-footed. Yeah, but he's definitely not that.
Indeed.
He's
not. He's someone that I think when he plays off the right, he's going to make a lot of those vertical movements. I think his best asset probably is the runs he can make into the box. And you're always looking at suitability. Again, he's, I think, a different profile for which gives Beale an interesting option up front because he gives you that strength in transition. Although it didn't happen that much tonight, can occupy defences. Remains to be seen how he does when he doesn't have as much space. But again, then I think you'll see the other side to his game, which is how handy his movement can be at points. But I think we'll wrap up there because we're going to be live with Derek in not too long, about 12 hours or so. Going to go home, watch the game back, get some work done, and we will be up bright and early at 9:30 for the morning briefing. Do remember, if you've not bought tickets to our live show, which will be at Edmiston House, just a stone's throw from here, then please do. All the details are below and on the website as well. But until then, thanks very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed all your match coverage today, and we'll see